This
is
Thursday. Look at those lines. No delay.
The cold waves, Ross. Come on.
Mine are like off the chart.
Yeah, mine are bigger than normal too, actually. Ross, I think you cut out again. I heard you went bow hunting for the first time, and then...
No, Matt, you're cutting
What?
Yeah,
out.
Matt, it's you.
Are you kidding me?
It's like you're in space.
Really?
Are you on the International Space Station right now?
Not that I'm aware
Maybe
of.
I'd maybe
Here
mute,
is-
just turn off your video.
Yeah. Is this
I think your
better?
bandwidth is a little laggy.
Okay. Seems fair.
So next best hope would be I'm going to send another email to Father Mike tomorrow and saying, hey, you could still do the intro. Something like that.
Worth
One
a try.
last desperate plea.
Worth a try.
Yeah. It's worth a try.
Yeah.
We sound so confident. Yeah, that's worth a try.
But he's speaking in St. Louis tonight, I hear, huh? So
Yeah, my boss is actually there.
I don't
Get outta here.
think we need to send an email. I think he's
Say,
staying
meet
at
me
some
for
hotel
coffee,
tonight,
you know?
So meet him for
Yeah.
breakfast.
You can find him.
Yeah. See what happens. Not a lot of primary sources. This podcast episode is going to be all heart. It's going to be all
That's
heart.
fine.
I think.
Yep.
Okay. What I used to tell my football team? Strong hearts can't lose. Wait, how?
Oh my
how's
gosh.
it go?
Clear eyes.
Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose.
When you see the road,
Michael Schaefer, Ross Johnson, Matt Schultz, and Landon Fry are all here this evening. Free.
expected. I've been back in
I'm just gonna say it. I've been thinking it for 10 minutes. I don't want to podcast scared.
Oh yeah.
ashes. Now I've seen the road.
Pregnancy is a beautiful thing. Pregnancy is a gift.
Shit. Oh, there are stories to tell.
Enough to get it.
Paint sticks to asteroids. Like, if you don't prime your wall.
Afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place.
We are called to emerge from that default setting of self-involvement.
Okay, we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Speeches by dads here. We got Father Mike Schmitz giving the talk. Funny thing, he's here tonight.
Speeches by.
And when I say here,
Go ahead. Sorry.
when I say here, I mean the St. Louis metro area, which is where I am at. 25% of the speech, guys. The speech I selected by Father Mike is the entire speech or talk's entitled Share, given at the 2019 Fellowship of Catholic University Students Seat Conference. The segment that's a couple of minutes long that we'll dial in here, I'm calling Lucy, which centers on the young woman who sort of encountered Father Mike Schmitz in a particular way where he felt that something was being asked of him and he may or may not have been able to deliver on that. So why don't we go ahead and listen to that speech and start chatting about
That's my
it.
first apology to all of you who took buses. And I'm sitting, a bunch of rows back, and this girl, and she got on the plane. She got out of the way. for this other little kid. And as she got out of the way, her knee dislocated. And she fell into this chair, 3 seats ahead of me. She fell into the seat. And I looked up like, oh gosh, what happened? And I looked up and I was like, oh, that's a girl. I wonder if she's coming to Seek, because we're on the plane to Indianapolis. And then I saw, some flight attendants come to her, and I saw the woman right in front of her, like, okay, right here. And I'm like, okay, she looks like she's taken care of. And then at one point, she looked back. She was in pain, and I caught her eye over my little headrest in front of me. And you guys, I gotta tell you, I was moved. I was like, oh my gosh, But looks like looks like she's being taken care of. And then again, she looked back. Okay, I'm looked back down. Okay, she's good. I have not stopped thinking about her this whole week. Every person on crutches, I'm like, is that her? The whole rest of the flight, I was like, man, hope she got escorted off the plane. I was like, I hope she's okay, hope she's okay. The whole time, I watched Bird Box as well, but other than that, that's indifference. It's not being moved. What it is not moving. So last night, if I look tired, it's because I couldn't sleep last night. Because that girl on the plane, her name is Lucy. Lucy emailed me. She said, Father Mike, I was on my way to Seek on your flight. So excited. I saw you were on my plane. I listened to the podcast, listened to the videos and stuff, and I was so excited. And then I dislocated my kneecap, and all this stuff happened, and some people who were so generous, they came to help me out. And I looked back. And you looked up. But you didn't come up. I was looking for my dad. Sorry about the seepage. But you didn't move. I gotta tell you guys, it wasn't that I wasn't moved. It's that I didn't move. It wasn't that I didn't care. It's I didn't care enough to act. That's gonna happen to every one of us. Even after you've been following Jesus for a long time. Even when people think you're better than you actually are. So what do? Well, you say you're sorry. You ask Jesus for help. You get up and you try again.
So, a lot of the time, maybe how I encountered this speech, I was not at the Focus Conference. I know it sounds like I'm young, but I was not in college in 2019. But I don't know. The past couple of months, I enjoy listening to talks like this when I go to bed. And the YouTube God pulled this one up for me. And the part we just listened to really struck me. Because it gets at this idea of indifference. And so I was thinking about, how do you dial in the nature of indifference? How does it manifest? What are its physics, if you will? This is how I think about it. And you guys can say, yeah, that sounds right, or nope, that doesn't sound right. So, a lot of the behaviors that we do, Don't worry, I'm going to bring this back to personal,
All right.
but we're dealing
Yep.
with theory right here.
Yep, bringing it.
I think a lot of the things that people do are shaped by ideology. And I don't mean that in like the way that's used right now a lot. It's just simply like motivated by, let's say, hard beliefs. What you learn in school that you think is true, what you learn at church that you think is true. Okay. That's what a lot of behavior motivates a lot of behaviors. At the macro and micro level. Okay. Then you have behaviors, so sort of like softer. And I think those are the things that you see and you do sort of mimetic. We'll bring Rene Girard here. You see and you replicate, and it comes fairly easily. Example of that, I'd imagine, would be like, I don't steal subscriptions. I don't steal streaming subscriptions because that's not what Schaefer's do. It's just like, it just doesn't feel right. Okay. The previous example would be like how you vote, some sort of like hard belief like that. Okay. What we're dealing with, this question of indifference, are like these very intimate challenges to character.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, as we just heard with Father Mike, no one is really watching him except for maybe this one other person who's a part of that experience. And nothing is obviously being demanded of you. Right? Father Mike's bishop was not going to call him if he failed to be present in the way Lucy asked him to. His whatever. And I think there's a lot of moments that we've all referenced on this podcast for us, that are moments that someone connects with us in a particular way or falls short in a particular way that are really striking to us and can have this like cascading effect on all these other beliefs. Like there's some version of the universe where Lucy, I dare say, maybe like loses her faith. Like, oh, Father Mike Schmitz, he's just a face. That's all he is. So, okay. I was just saying like all these different moments, things that I recognize in my life. So I'm thinking of like these different moments where someone was there and helped me believe in these bigger things. It's just been something big in my life. I think, that's a different direction than what Ross had with his speech by dads. So that's why I picked the speech. First reactions. Things you know about Father Mike Schmitz. Things that stuck out to you about the speech, etc.
He's the Bible in a year guy, right? Yep. Bible in a year guy.
Yeah, I'll be.
So I kind of want. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
You got it. You got
Please
it. You sounded really confident.
No. I'm not. I know it was false. You go.
No, but I honestly, this one, it actually really cut pretty deep. Like there's stuff that came up hearing that we'll talk about at a different time. Like it's like too deep for podcast type of stuff, but there's other stuff that's, podcast worthy too. But,
or it's only deep enough for premium members.
That's right. No, but gosh, like, this really, so I had like a really slow day the other day in the emergency department. And there's a chapel, there's a couple different chapels on the hospital campus. So I like straight up, spent some time just praying over just how I've been indifferent on a variety of things. And just like what I actually need to do to get like these different facets of life kind of, in order. It's not like I've become a completely disarray drinking, or like, totally fallen apart, but just, stuff where I'm like, I've actually gotten sloppy with, like this particular aspect of my marriage, like not being consistent with like planning date nights and stuff, or like now that this thing has changed. It's like, in some ways I'm kind of mailing in certain aspects of work or just kind of doing the bare minimum. And yeah, I mean, I just think he kind of raises the bar on the definition of indifference in a way that I think I needed to hear. And yeah, so I just it really kind of hit me harder than maybe I expected. I don't know.
For me, like, first reaction to the speech would be like just listening through his story about Lucy and whatnot. And I felt like I just started thinking about different things and like how he kind of talked about, how, or I don't know, I guess the way I felt about it was thinking about, being there for someone or whatnot. But I started thinking about the difference between, like, I don't know if you guys would see a similar difference, but what I can do for someone versus like what someone needs from me right now. So, and I feel like a lot of times, and maybe it's like a pride thing. Like when we think about helping another human being or being in a relationship with somebody or, helping this stranger on this airplane, like it's easy to think of, well, what can I do for them? But it's like you're putting the emphasis on the I a little bit. So, and then if you do something, you kind of give yourself the pat on the back because you felt like you did something good, where like I feel like there's a difference between that and what does this person need from me right now. And I don't know, I guess I haven't given it enough thought to be able to go super deep into it, but I think maybe you can get into some of the, I don't know, I feel like that can be a little bit of a difference between truly serving someone and just, and not that the first way is not serving them in a way, right? I mean, if you see a homeless person on the street and you give them a granola bar, like they needed some food, like there are ways to, I think that, like, it's not that the first way is bad, but especially as you get like into relationships with people, I think that second way, what does this person need, and being willing to, do that. So, in that example, Lucy seemingly was asking Father Mike, into that situation, but, in a way he didn't feel like he had anything to offer. But I don't know. So I guess I'm going to start rambling a little bit, but I kind of started to just think about a little bit of a distinction just when you're going to be there for somebody else. So that was kind of my first reaction to at least this portion of the speech.
Okay, so it sounds like you're trying to think about or articulate the distinction between doing something and sort of being present in a particular way is sort of the thing to think about, the thing that Father Mike sort of
so I started applying it
to
like home life with my wife or my kids, and it's easy to think about, what can I do to serve them right now, and it might be like good things, but I'm going to do the dishes for Julie, or, I'm going to take the kid for a walk. Sure. I don't know, it might be like a good thing, but is that really what that person needs in that moment? And maybe it is, honestly, but maybe it's something totally different, just being present to them in a different way or something. Or I feel like sometimes it's like, for me, like, I don't know. I think like two examples are, I think of like, and I think maybe like you get into like the love language thing a little bit, but I'll think about, how can I serve Julie? But I always think about things like make sense to me, if that makes sense. So I think of like a lot of action and doing things. So I will clean up the house, or I will do or I'll do this or this, and try to make these kind of physical gestures in a way, as opposed to stepping back and what is she asking of me right now. I don't know. See, I guess I'm rambling again a little bit, but I feel like there's something there.
I resonate with both of those. I think when I first opened up the outline and saw Mike talk about the topic, having not listened to the speech yet, a little bit of what Matt was saying about indifference, caring but not caring enough to do anything, or... Excuse me, that's what Mike wrote in his document and Matt talked about in life generally. I was like, oh, this is This is pretty deep, a weighty, hearty, all heart, less facts. And then Mike, I also saw that you wrote some of your take on it was like the significance of being relentless in doing good. And I think that it would have taken Father Mike, more of a relentless attitude to turn, he did say, the line that he kind of repeated that I wrote down to take to heart was like, indifference doesn't mean you don't care. Difference means you aren't caring enough. You aren't moved enough to act from your caring. Doesn't mean you aren't moved. It means you aren't moved enough to act. And I do see just some of, I don't know, thinking about you specifically, Mike, some of your just behaviors, disciplines, like you are, I see a lot more relentless in you. And I've always admired that about you. So it's fascinating to kind of see the sorts of things like this speech that perhaps pull at your heart to remind yourself to continue to act and putting myself in Father Mike's position. I mean, he even went through the thinking of like, oh, maybe this person is going to be at this conference I'm flying to. Like, that's a whole nother level of like getting pretty close to, I should probably act here because I'm kind of part of this thing. Like, there's a chance I might see her. And then still it's like, the eye bounce is fine. She's taken care of. He did have a lot of weight in the moment that almost bubbled up into action, but didn't quite get there. And it was, I don't know, listening to him talk through it was quite a just cringe struggle, because like I wouldn't have probably gotten up either. And gosh, there's you sit down and reflect of all the places you probably could have done something. It's good to ponder this topic. So
one thing I've always observed, and I've always just called this like dopey dad syndrome, where, and this is me just being a terrible judgmental human, I'm sure mostly, but you see like a dad, and you could tell they're not as interested in dressing well, right? They they talk about nothing but sports, or they wear a jersey to church or something, and it's like, come on, like get your act together. Or they you just kind of get the impression that they've kind of disengaged from the world. They're checking sports scores on their phone or whatever. They're they just try to get away from the family as much as they can, and that's kind of how they talk. And they might do things they absolutely need to do, in terms of work or in terms of whatever, but it's and I'm just like, gosh, like I don't want to be the dopey dad, and I think that like just his definition of indifference, so being moved but not being moved enough to act, or perhaps being moved but having just enough excuses. Some of them are decent enough, but having excuses nonetheless that keep you staying where you're at, like I'm not going to take time to like write this poem that sounds really cool, because, well, it's not going to make me any money. Like, why am I going to do that? Why would I waste my time doing that? Or like, I'm not going to take time, with this kind of random creative side project, or I'm not going to take time to, help my neighbor who needs help carrying their sick dog in their apartment. because like, well, I've got kids at home and they've got things to do, and just this, there's never going to be a perfect time to do good. And just it's this indifference, I think, is the mechanism by which you get to dopey dad,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
not stepping up in these small circumstances, eventually like you just lose all this momentum, and it's so hard to get moving after that.
Yep. Yeah. This ties really well into the first half of Father's Mike's speech. Did you listen to it, Matt, or?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on YouTube, but it was before the Lucy part. I think, there is this situation Father Mike's in on the airplane, a need. He didn't do it. I think the needs, and I don't know, I'm trying to correlate that into dopey dad or like meeting the needs of others. And in the first part of the speech, he definitely expounds on being present, and he's speaking specifically to college students, telling them how much free time they have. And even though they have class and activities and all this stuff, like as a college kid who believes in Jesus and has a chance to witness to other students around you, like leave slack in your life for a walk with somebody or to be present with those around you. And I think he even specifically said the only people you're ever going to actually, legitimately, genuinely, profoundly share the gospel with are like friends or family. It's not, which I heard like, it's not going to be blog posts or Twitter or Facebook mentions or any host of things that aren't like built on a prior physical, in-person, present relationship. And I think that the further away either the further away you are, the busier your schedules, if there is no Slack, or if you're just sucked into the screens all the time. That is tying this into what I kind of had in my notes here. I think what is hard to get out of the indifference water that we swim in, like it is part of our water. This is water reference. That we're just not probably present enough to be able to first notice these things, and then to realize that we can, I don't know, live in the moment and just better decide to act, or at least have more of a conscience or unconscious nature to react. Probably because we're partly self-absorbed. It's all about us. We're trying to carve out our time to take a rest, scroll, whatever that may be. But
okay,
I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, your comment on sort of consciousness or conscientiousness of the, at some level, necessity to overcome the indifference, which Matt sort of pointed out to the dopey dad, the football jersey wearing dad at church, which, hey, it's good he's at church at least. Yeah, I mean, I'd respond similarly if, I saw a dad in a football jersey as our metaphor for other things, right? Sure. Respond similarly. It's like, oh my gosh, like, really? Why? Blah, blah, blah. And there are a lot of people, for sure, many of them probably not even at church, who would probably say that we're being like judgmental. Actually, let me use a different example than the football jersey, because that, I think that's not quite benign, or it's a little bit too benign to make my point. Let's instead say the family that's out to eat, and all three kids are on screens. Sure. Okay, and maybe the whole family's on screens. Shoot, that happens all the time. Right, and we'd all feel the same, like, oh my gosh, we probably talk about the way out, like, rubbing our hands and something to that effect. Okay, and then there'd be a lot of people who'd say, "Oh gosh, you're being so judgmental." Like, I'm sure maybe they're taking a break on their screens. What's the big deal? Something like that. And recently a friend said, because we were talking about judgmentalness, and me and some people close to me recently have been accused of being judgmental, which that's like a whole nother thing, but just set that aside for a second. And like, let's put these in other words, like that family that's on their screens. Okay, to the Mr. or Miss Holier Than Thou who's calling me judgmental, and they're having no reaction to the family of screens. How do you, and this is like a genuine question to this hypothetical person, like, how do you not be affected by that? How do you not, I don't want to be like melodramatic, but how do you not be sorrowful for the literal loss of life that's taking place there? Because the reality is, like, I'm just not convinced that there's some break that needs to be taken. Like, oh, they've been working hard. Like, all you can think about is the sadness and lack of goodness when a family is on their screens around the dinner table. And I'm connecting this to like Landon's point with the conscientiousness thing. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just sort of like painting something on the wall here. I'm trying to figure it out exactly what we're getting at, because I'll leave it there. If there's something that sticks for you guys.
That Ross, go ahead, go Ross.
I think the only way, like, not to be saddened by that, like Mike, you said, how can you not be saddened by the situation? Like, the only way not to be is just indifference. You know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna praise that situation. I think what's difficult,
there's the point I'm trying.
And then maybe tie it into something Landon said, and so if you guys have thoughts to kind of tidy that up more, feel free to kind of stop me before I get too far in. But I kind of think of, and something that's kind of stuck out to me from the earlier part of his talk. He talked a lot about the environment around you, right? And how you have to change the environment if you're actually going to, do something. So, and I do feel like that's something I've experienced as an adult, is there is an environment of indifference in the world. So, and I don't know, we're probably didn't give it enough thought / aren't qualified to kind of describe the whys, is that just too much individualism, or people are too busy or whatnot? But I kind of think about it as like things like this, like you hear the analogies of like the world's going downstream, you have to swim upstream, but like I always kind of picture it as like the quarter, like when you put in those, I don't know why you just give places quarters, I guess, but like it's just the big circle thing, and you put the coin in, and it kind of slowly goes down and down and down. And I just kind of feel like that's kind of the world. Like, if you don't relentlessly, push back, you will get pulled in. And I think he kind of, Father Mike questioned that, like, or he not questioned, I'm sorry, he said that, I forget what exactly it was, but, you're going to go back to your campuses and you're going to do nothing. And, if I liked what he said, you have all this willpower. It's like, well, I don't remember how he worded it, but the environment's going to eat your willpower for breakfast or something. And I kind of just feel like I've kind of experienced that. I think I had a little bit maybe overconfidence in coming out of college and PT school of, I knew better, so I wasn't going to get pulled in, of course I won't. And fill in the blank, look at my phone too much, watch too much sports, not help out my friends, whatever it may be. And then but it does actually take a pretty conscious, relentless effort to not get pulled down into that indifferent, this indifference, I guess. And I think what stuck out to me from his talk was I really liked, he gave like the part about, the three people walking shoulder to shoulder towards the lions, and they ran away. And I kind of just thought about that as, I do think, to kind of close my thinking here so you guys have time to jump in. Just kind of that whole environment thing. I definitely have found that to be so true. As far as the people you're around, you know, we think of ourselves maybe more highly than we are, but at least in my case, so this is true for me. If I don't, you know, if I'm just focused on work, and I do feel like men, like you need men to be alongside you and push you. So, you know, if I'm only focused on work and, you know, getting stuff done at home and XYZ, like I will just kind of slowly slip a little bit. But then, you know, we'll have this conversation tonight, and you guys will kind of inspire me and challenge me in different ways, and like I'll do better for a week or so.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Gospels here, right? In these different scenes where, and I actually made some notes on this for PSR class this Sunday, right? So much of the Gospels are these different scenes where Christ is going to the edges, the social edges, right? And ministering to the prostitutes or the tax collectors there. And so consider this, okay? So in our modern society, you know, if you ask a student, you know, what are some things you can do for the sake of the gospel, they're going to say things like that. Oh, go work, go volunteer at a homeless shelter, or go da-da-da, go da-da-da. The point is they're going to appeal to all these different systems that someone else put in place. Maybe they'll do them, maybe they won't. But Christ obviously, I mean, there were no systems back then except the Roman government. Like that was the only system. And I think there's something instructive in sort of meditating on that idea and sort of reevaluating the nature of the margins of society today, right? Because there's margins in society, but there's margins to every moment. Like there's a way of looking at the situation with Lucy as she was on the margin for Father Mike. She was on the edge of Father Mike's sort of awareness margin. And I'm glad that the relentlessness idea as being some sort of disposition relevant to fighting against indifference has stuck here a little bit, because like how I think about it in a certain way is, I mean, one shouldn't be completely motivated by just what other people think, right? You should be motivated simply for the good of another to do X, Y, or Z. But I don't know if I want to go with that direction. Okay, so making eye contact with, or just some sort of like direct contact like at the grocery store with whoever I'm checking out with is like really important to me. And I think that's a good example because 99% of the time, the people who go through, I mean, it might as well be a robot for most people when you're checking out the grocery line. And to have that recognition, to sort of go out to the edge, if you will, like that can be everything. And it makes me really sad when maybe I'm with someone who, for better or for worse, sort of wears their religion on their sleeve, their Christian faith on their sleeve, and like doesn't do that. Like my head is almost literally spinning. Like how can you not do that? Like I don't get it. And again, maybe I'm being judgmental, but to put it in more maybe amenable terms, like I literally feel sad for that loss of human life there. And like, well, how do you get past that? I don't know. You just think this other person next to me, they must be dealing with something that doesn't allow them to make this one-on-one contact with the grocery person, right? So I don't know. That's sort of a rambling thought, but hopefully there's something there that
Yeah.
Seems familiar.
That example strikes me as a way to clarify part of my point from earlier. I think that it's a Windleberry take of like basically what we're trying to overcome here is we have the ability to swim in this water of indifference because everything in society is so non-relational, so completely transactional.
Yeah.
And if you, and I do this so much, I don't actually think it's probably a healthy mental frame of mind, but it's like, how would this thing that what would have this looked like 100 years ago in a 2,000 person town? Or like, frankly, how would have this worked in like Iliopolis or Havana? It's like, you basically kind of know everyone. Like if you go through, if you were living in Iliopolis 30 years ago, it's like you're going to talk to Doug Johnson or you're going to know that person behind the cashier. You go back to certainly large cities 200 years ago would have a anonymity that you could swim in. But it is the reality now, and it's the reality that you even get on an airplane going to a conference. Like, I'm here, I'm just traveling. I don't have any obligations to his home parish, or I'm not at the conference yet. I'm in this in-between where, like, I could completely shut down and watch Bird Box or whatever movie he said he watched. And it's like, I'm going to consume this movie, like, heads down. And, like, if you are in a place where, and it's not real. If that small town village place, you wouldn't even have the ability to be indifferent. Otherwise, in those places, you're just probably called a jerk, right? Like it comes with a lot more judgmental weight than, oh, you're judgmental because you're judging that family with iPhones. It's like, or in any other situation, like, oh, that guy's kind of the a-hole of the town. So it could actually be much harsher than being judgmental.
Can I make one brief aside with the judgmental thing? That's like the one sin that everyone agrees it's always okay to call someone else out on. Doesn't matter, conservative, liberal, that's the one sin.
Sure.
Everyone's
it's the last. I think at one point one of us
kind of misquoted, isn't it? I mean, you read the whole paragraph and it's like, but they're like, it is also vernacular. Use good judgment. Like that's not a sin.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you swing that purview of using good judgment at a people or person, it kind of goes on to say like, as you judge, so will you be judged. Essentially, I don't know.
I want to say at one point, one of us said like health or fitness was the last moral high ground, but now even that I feel like has eroded to the point where it's like, no, being judgmental is the only thing you can actually be accused of in society. Like you can't even be accused of being overweight or unhealthy or whatever.
An agnostic friend of mine pointed that out one time, just as like the only moral high ground you can take in society is like, I'm this healthy or this fit. And he told me that like 10 years ago. I think it probably has eroded somewhat.
What facets have you guys noticed that kind of keeps you in the indifferent zone? Like what weights have you felt? What is like when you're in your maybe without saying the specifics of a particular Lucy moment, but when you've had a Lucy-esque moment, like what are you guys feeling when you're there? Like what I guess what things are keeping us in the indifferent zone?
My couple of things stick out pretty easily. Maybe being annoyed by someone in that situation. just not believing that my actions are going to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I think futility. Yeah, futility is like a big one. Uh, I think I mean, and maybe this is to some degree like a phase, and I need to be patient with myself. But like, maybe that's an excuse too. But I do think that just like, oh, I've got kids, and Claire's counting out. So like, if there's something outside of the family that's kind of beckoning me, um, I feel like that's a thing, which to some degree that might be prudent. And there, especially with younger kids, there's always more urgent matters, right? Like they're pooping their pants, they're, they're literally about to jump off the couch to potential, fractured bones or something. Um, but, um, but yeah, I know like there's that, which, yeah, it's just, I don't know if I always take the time afterward to be like, was it that urgent, and like kind of call myself on it. So maybe like just not having that reflective zone, um, but I also think just bigger picture things. I'm a very rational person, which sometimes is my like I think my own undoing. Because there's always reasons you can come up with if you're clever enough, but not if you're holy. you know, feel like holiness kind of bypasses your reason in a really beautiful and uh, sometimes scary sort of way, or like a reckless maybe sort of way. Um, but yeah, I think there's that being too rational. Um, and I like the word you used, Landon, transactional, just like with our world being. I mean, so many things happen at the push of a button. Almost every need we have as humans has been kind of absorbed into a professional sphere of some sort. Um, when you were feeling down, you used to like go to the pub and you talk to your friends, and now there,
Yeah,
and
that was a
not that there's obviously you don't want
yeah.
to drink your problems away, and there's value to therapy and whatnot, but I don't know. I feel like everything is so transactional that it does kind of remove you from this need to help anyone else.
Maybe they tie together a little bit, like what keeps you in the indifference. I think busyness is a thing in the sense of just, and I'll tie it in a little bit. Like I feel like for me personally, like I think just selfishness sometimes. So I feel like I have a pretty good example, honestly. So yesterday I had a coworker ask me. So long story short, like a guy, it's an assistant I work with, and so one of my patients had canceled, so I had some free time. And by free time, I was actually kind of behind on some documentation, and I had this person from a different agency I had to call. So like I had like a list of things I wanted to do. So it was actually like I was very excited because I finally had a chance to like get caught up on things at work. And a coworker asked me to see the patient he was going to be seeing in that time block. Because long story short, his son had been sick for a little while, so he was coming to the doctor, and they share like a building with us, so he wanted to be at the appointment. And so I feel like in that moment, like I had like stuff I could be doing, but nothing, pressing. And I had a friend ask me, to do him a favor so he could be there for his son. And I mean, I did say yes and like see the patient and whatnot. So like I kind of like quote unquote did my job, but just I definitely did it bitterly and resentfully, if that makes sense. Like I was frustrated that my time had been taken away. So as opposed to, seeing this person, this Lucy, who, is, looking for me to aid them in a certain situation, I feel like I kind of resentfully complied. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I feel like it kind of fits in the way of, I had this person that wanted me, it was asking me to help, and instead of seeing them as someone, I guess I wasn't even indifferent. I was like the opposite, and I was kind of frustrated. But and I feel like maybe I think I'm somewhat maybe a little bit too critical on myself sometimes, because like I said, I mean, I did do it, and I'm sure I didn't come off as frustrated as I felt interiorly. But I just think that the fact that I did feel like that interiorly is problematic. So I don't know. I did make sure I found him this morning and apologized if I came off as, unwilling to help out or whatnot, and told him, absolutely, if you need help, because your kid's sick, I'll do what I can. But so I don't know, to Matt, your question, like what keeps us in the indifference, I guess for me, just kind of selfishness was in that example. I think one thing too, which if you guys have more on the if people have examples or whatever on these kind of situations, that would be good to hear. But one thing I do want to make sure we take time for, I think it'd be fitting, and we haven't really talked about it much yet. So, I mean, I do think hearing Father Mike speak, like he carries a certain weight to him, just because we all know who he's a priest, but a lot of us have listened to him and heard him speak before, and respect him a lot. So, but I don't know, I feel like just the idea of, how to tie this into speeches by dads, him not being, a biological dad, but a priest, this more like this spiritual dad or this mentor. I don't know, Mike. Oh, no, fathers. Yeah. I don't know, Mike, do you
Speeches by fathers.
Like, was it strictly the speech that stuck out to you? Or do you feel like it was something that, like, I don't know, I know we could tie that in a little bit. Like, when Father Mike spoke, was it like, oh, this is Father Mike talking? Or was it just like, no, just strictly just the speech stuck out to you enough that, I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, both, but yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's good. Yeah, we haven't really dialed in sort of the role of fatherhood or fatherly attributes and their role in overcoming indifference. Yeah, this is good because I had in my notes here bringing up this scene from Calvary, the whole film itself, Calvary. Unfortunately, there's no clip of it online, but I will be able to play a clip of it right now.
Out of your pocket.
What?
Slowly.
Mike.
I heard you would have gone. I have to say I'm surprised. I'd have to go looking for you.
Just because I'm here doesn't mean you have to go through with it.
Yes, it does. It's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. Did you ever think it would come to this, though, huh?
I was hoping it wouldn't. I thought you were a friend of mine.
Sure, a friend is just an enemy you haven't made yet.
Cheap cynicism.
Not cheap now, no. That's a cynicism that's been hard won. That's a cynicism that's been earned after a hell of a lot of physical and psychological torture.
Well, I take it back then, but it's cynicism nonetheless. Maybe that's the difference between us.
Oh, that's not the only difference. Any regrets?
I have, yeah. Never got to finish Moby Dick.
The whale kills Ahab.
It's all right.
Then he destroys the rest of the ship and the crew along with it. All except for Ishmael. He alone escapes to tell thee.
The burning of the church, I can understand. You didn't have to kill my dog.
I didn't kill your dog. I love dogs. Why would I do a thing like that?
I found him with his throat cut.
Why would I fucking kill a dog? I didn't. That was nothing to do with me. I am wholly innocent of that crime. I did give Veronica a bit of a shove that one time, though. I do admit that, and I am sorry for it. Did it upset you, the dog?
Yes, it did.
Did you cry?
Yes, I did.
That's nice. And when you read about what your fellow priest did to all those poor children down all those years, did you cry then? I asked you a question. Did you cry then?
No.
That's right.
I suppose...
What?
suppose I felt detached from it.
Yeah.
The way you are when you read something in a newspaper.
Detach yourself from that. We were the lucky ones. There's bodies burning back there, burning like dogs. Don't look at me. Turn your face away, don't look at me. No! No, run! Hey, Hal, run!
We'll get started, Father!
But you guys have seen that movie, right? Everyone?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh, I love this movie. Love it, love it, love it. You know the premise.
Yeah,
Landon?
Nope, I don't.
Know the
No.
premise. Guy walks into a confessional and he explains to the priest that he was sexually abused by a priest, not that priest. And he explains he's going to kill this priest in 1 week. His logic is probably one weak point in the movie because it's just like to cause a scene because it's going to make a great story. He can't kill the bad priest because the bad priest died a long time ago. So Brendan Gleeson's priest character has 1 week to decide of whether or not he's going to show up to this killer because he's home, like, meet him at the beach, whatever. And there's a scene, this dialogue that takes place at the end when they're both on the beach. Spoiler warning. And, as we just heard, the guy, the victim, is asking the priest, did you cry when you read about, well, no, first he asked, did you cry when your dog died? Someone killed his dog a couple days before. And he's like, yeah, I did cry. And he said, did you cry when you read those stories about the sexual abuse? And he said, no, I didn't. And he said, why not? And he said, well, I guess because they felt so far away. And then he shoots him, but not a deadly shot yet. But it's just like, oh, it's so good. Now I'm just getting the film stuff here. But the whole point of it is how, right, the victim is bringing up this indifference. It's like the wound of being sexually abused was bad enough. And then feeling indifferent to the world, most especially by this priest in his parish, by saying that, yeah, honestly, I didn't cry. And there's something that's really sort of exceptional and I think romantic in a good way about the celibate nature of the priesthood is that you're sort of available to, you could almost say like sacramentally available in a lowercase s sort of way, like to the world. That the world sort of recognizes that in your celibacy, you're sort of, it's almost like God is making you available to the world. And people, I think, feel invited into that space and seeking fatherly moments when, for whatever reason, their father isn't there. And I think that the whole film, Calvary, I think tells that story well, that Brendan Gleeson does choose to be faithful to his priesthood. But I think this scene obviously most critically sort of exemplifies that. And even though not everyone is priest, there's still, I think, something, well, if you're baptized, you are. There is still something really instructive and inspirational about that idea of Yeah, sort of leaning into your masculinity, your fatherly attributes to be present in those ways.
I like how you used that character in that movie to explain the importance of priestly celibacy. Because I feel like it actually makes sense in a way that, yeah, that's actually helpful. I mean, I just think that's an interesting way to think about it. That makes a lot of sense. But, yeah, I mean, I think to kind of jump off that just a little bit, like, it is interesting because, like, I feel like that, like, that's a really good example of, like, heroic masculinity, if that makes sense. So, you know, like, watching that movie, it's just like, yeah, you just kind of recognize that was, you know, like, that's like the opposite of the dopey dad syndrome. And I feel like in some ways, priests kind of offer that. And right, I mean, priests aren't perfect. They have their own struggles, and there's a lot of dads that have, or like, you know, lay men that have heroic masculinity as well. But I feel like, speaking generally, I think, at least my experience, the priests that I've got to know, I feel like overall they do a very good job of kind of exemplifying that kind of heroic masculinity in a way that keeps us, like, I guess is very helpful in guiding us out of the kind of world of indifference that we're talking about. You know, whether it's a challenging homily or just, you know, this movie about what this priest did or something he tells you in the confessional or whatever. Yeah, they do. Like, I do feel like they kind of fill a void of a fatherly figure often, you know, when, I don't know, just, in big and small ways, I guess.
And that scene you're describing, Mike, like, Claire's never shot me or anything, but there are times where your spouse challenges you, or there's just something you do that is totally benign to you, right? Like this priest not crying when he's reading these accounts of sexual abuse, whatever. Yeah, there's a number of iterations of things I do as a husband, and I'm sure as a father too. Like, just my kids are too young to make it as obvious just yet, but where it's totally benign to me, and then but it means so much to this other person. And that's just, it's the hardest part of marriage, is just like you and your spouse just realize how much you suck, and how much the other person sucks. Like, and I love Claire and she's amazing, and I couldn't be married to, I mean, I'm very glad I'm married to her as opposed to anyone else in this whole world, you know, but it's like you do realize how much each other suck, you know, and and you feel these pains, like this priest felt this gunshot wound, you know, and where it's like, oh man, like I really do stink, you know, and you're confronted with yourself oftentimes in this just really difficult way. And I guess like the two ways you respond are, like, one is indifference, like, because it's so easy to just try to distance yourself from even that, you know, even though you're living with this person, you're living with your spouse, and but it's, you can very easily distance yourself from someone you live with, you know. And but then the other way is to, like, just like stay there, you know, and just be there. And, you know, if this guy had a gun, it's not like the priest was trying to wrestle it out of his hands or do some Jason Bourne maneuvers to, like, escape. You know, he just, like, he was aware of the danger and he stood there, you know, and maybe that's kind of the antidote to indifference. In some way, I mean, obviously you need to act and move when those moments come up, but kind of just flexing or training your muscle in the moments where you really just need to stand there and just kind of take take what you deserve, so to speak, or just kind of wrestle with your shortcomings. Maybe that's like the training zone for being able to jump and move in these other circumstances.
I don't know if our Lucy stories is a good final bell.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now I wish we told some Lucy stories earlier, though.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and share one of my I'll share one of my Lucy stories here for giggles. Like I said, I really hadn't remembered this until just talking here, but it's actually sort of similar to Father Mike's story. I was on a plane to a Focus conference, and just kidding. No. It was when I was at Bradley, Peoria there, and I was helping coach track. I helped coach track and volleyball and cross country at St. Mark's Grade School there, and it was track season, and we had a meet at Peoria, Notre Dame. Like, I was a kid coaching other kids. I don't know why they let me do it, but fresh out of college there. And girl, man, her brother's name was Daniel. I guess I can't say her name now because then it could potentially give it away. Not that there's anything that bad that happened, but anyway, but no, I did like her a lot. She was a nice, great girl. But somehow she twisted her ankle or something. And it was like in my vicinity. And, it gained some attention of like a gaggle of other kids, a handful of kids or something. And like, I did not know what to do. It didn't seem that significant to me. And I didn't do anything. I just I stood there and looked on. And another girl who is sort of a girl who would say this, and she said the right thing there. It was sort of beyond her years in a sense. But she said, "Mr. Schaefer, do something." And I don't even remember exactly what I did, if I just did some sort of gesture towards the semi-injured girl, or what. But I clearly recognized that this 6th grade girl was speaking the truth to me. And I sensed that. And, it's like now what I would do in that situation is, it's exactly what Father Mike recognized. You don't need to create a splint. You just need to enter into that moment, right? And the kids need to see that there's an adult and the people are cared for, right? And like that's not necessarily an obvious idea to a 23-year-old guy, especially as like maturity comes later in our society, right? How do you enter into those moments in a responsible, fatherly sort of way? Because you're not always going to have the 6th grade girl to tell you to do something. Maybe rather than us all doing, because that get like a negative and positive Lucy, one of you guys have a good positive Lucy? Like you did not pull a Father Mike.
You did the right thing. Yeah.
You said, "Everyone get the hell out of the way."
I had a good negative, but you asked us for a positive.
Wow, you guys are all just a bunch of Father Mikes watching Bird Box.
One positive I can think of. So this was also at Bradley, probably similar. Well, yeah, it had to have been the same year as yours, Mike.
Matt ran in with his shirt off and scooped the kid up and like sprinted him to the hospital.
Yeah, no big deal.
Mike was just eating Doritos.
Wearing his football jersey to church the next day. But no, one positive, yeah, like where I could have been the Lucy or pulled the Lucy moment. So this was after a Koinonia retreat, and I was the lay director for it that year. And I actually, this might have been the year after you were there, Mike. I take that back because Annie, yeah, I remember Annie, yeah. Uh, but anyhow, so um, it's a rather exhausting weekend, especially when you're in charge of most of the things. Um, and uh, yeah, just rather exhausting weekend. So everyone, all the retreatants come back and they just kind of go off and do their thing, but you kind of have to unpack, you have to guide all this other stuff, whatever. So I was just pretty pooped. And this one of the people who was volunteering on the retreat, um, to be honest, I can't remember her name. So maybe that's the negative Lucy moment that I've forgotten this individual's name. but um, but someone who I didn't know well, someone who I didn't have any like real uh, friendship with or any um, but she needed she lived off campus. She was one of the few people who lived off campus, and she needed a ride home. And I was like, like all I want to do is be done with this right now. And this was like in PT schools, and we had like a decent test coming like earlier that week. So I was like, the fact that I even like did this retreat, I thought was enough. Um, but yeah, it was. But yeah, I gave her a ride home. Uh, I felt like I was pretty charitable and cheery about it. Um, and yeah, no, that was just like one moment that, again, I can't remember this individual's name. Whoever you are, I'm sorry if you're listening. Doubt very much you are. But uh, yeah, that was I think a good Lucy moment where it's like, yeah, even the lay director of this retreat, they had time for yeah, I made time for this individual.
So I had a patient, doing physical therapy with neurological patients. He had a spinal cord injury, and I don't remember exactly where. I think it was towards the end of his rehab, and he just wasn't making a ton of progress. We were going to be discharging him soon, and I mean, it was just one of those cases. He's a nice guy, but he lives by himself. He'd had this spinal cord injury, couldn't walk. A lot of just basic things you take for granted were impossible or incredibly difficult for him, blah, blah. So I did an activity with him. We were trying to get him to where he could stand some at home, just to get some weight bearing, and even that was kind of dicey. But so I think I tried to do like an activity to get him to stand up for longer. So he would maybe play some checkers, and I stretched it way longer than probably I should have from we're actually doing a standing exercise, because I just kind of felt like the guy kind of seemed like maybe he needed somebody just to hang out with for a bit, if that makes sense. And I always felt like it seemed like he enjoyed coming into the therapy clinic, because he wanted to come to therapy and hoped he would get better, but just because it kind of gave him a chance to interact with some people, because he lived by himself, and I don't want to project or guess too much about him, but I always just kind of got the sense that he just really enjoyed being able to spend some time with, other human beings. And it was kind of the same. I don't remember the exact details, but kind of the same thing. I felt like we'd done that activity, session was over. It would have been way more convenient for me to just say bye like I normally would, so I could get all my stuff done afterwards. And I remember I was like, no, I really felt like it seemed like he kind of just needed somebody to spend some time with. So I asked him if he wanted to hang out and just play some checkers. So that's kind of like my lunch that day. It was just playing checkers with this guy. I don't know. So I feel like that was a positive Lucy.
Nice.
I probably pull the pass it up more often than not, but that was one situation I feel like I did not.
I ended up thinking of just some broader, just while you guys were talking. I think a Lucy moment, as we define it, is certainly someone arm's length in a sort of distress like Father Mike had, that she didn't necessarily need a physical need, but she recognized him. It would have been great if he just said, "How are you?" And I think a couple things came to mind of like, I think when there's deaths in friends or family, or, you know, babies being born, I've been on the receiving end of like meals and have tried to like, you know, go out of our way to plan meals and give to others, like, you know, church, neighborhood, friends, and certainly have been Father Mike in a lot of situations. Sometimes I've noticed it, but it's like being able to be really good at those big moments in those family and friends' lives is like one place that I do think you can be pretty indifferent about that stuff if you don't take time. I don't know, depends how close maybe, but they can slip by, and I think that's one place to actively not be indifferent.
Have you guys ever read, our friends over at the Art of Manliness have a great article on always go to the funeral? Have you ever read that?
I remember reading it a long time ago. Yeah. It's been a while.
It's funny you reference that, though, because there was an article published by someone at NPR that said always go to the wake, and I reference that a lot.
Yeah, I went to so many visitations growing up. Just like,
a weakness on my own part.
It was like, you know.
That is actually, I feel like, a really good example. Like, you know, kind of the same thing. Like, we go to these things, and as a kid, you're just kind of bored and don't want to do it or whatever. But then it's like, I've only taken not very many times have I taken my family to visit.
Yeah, I mean, I think wakes specifically, more than funerals, you know, tend to be at inconvenient times. But, you know, wakes, well, and it tends to be people more expected at a funeral. Both a wake, right? It's this sort of interesting space where you are not necessarily expected to be there, but it would be, you know, that the people there would think it was nice if you were there. It's inconvenient, but not impossible. It's going to take up hour, 2 hours, maybe, of your evening. You're directly exposed to a dead body, which is never fun. And you're coming into contact with someone who needs contact, but you don't have anything interesting to say, right? You don't have a joke. You don't have an anecdote. You just have to go.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to fix it or to improve. Yeah, that's like you're just there.
It's just awkward, but not awkward in a bad way, like someone did anything wrong. And that's why it is such an important thing.
I also feel like that's like a perfect example of like we kind of talked about earlier, like how transactional things are. It's like there's no way you can get something back in this situation, you know? Like when I felt, part of why I felt bad when my coworker asked me to see that patient, and then I did. And again, I don't think I don't think I came off, I didn't like roll my eyes and say, sure, I'll do it, you know? But, but like it hit me like in the afternoon, like he had some free time. He's like, hey, and so he's one of the physical therapy assistants, and the patient I was seeing at a certain time in the afternoon that he had seen like quite a few times before, he was like, hey, you know, if you want, I can see so-and-so for you. And like, kind of as a, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So I remember thinking like, oh, I hope I didn't, you know, it was a very transactional thing, right? I helped him, he helped me, and I hope it wasn't like a pressure because of how I came off. But yeah, I feel like the funerals or the wake is such a good example because it's just not, there's just not anything to get back there.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the final bells that I guess Landon wrote down there. I don't know if we're gonna say anything new or interesting, but
I don't think they're
guess
that great. I was just trying to brainstorm.
Yeah. We don't even all need to answer, but how would you begin to convince someone, i.e., dopey dad, restaurant screeners, visitation not goers, to swim out the lane of indifference? Great word choices there. What would help us be less indifferent? I mean,
that's more like a topic than a final bell. I feel like that's just hard to.
What if we did like what's one thing you're gonna do this week? One concrete thing you're gonna do this week to be less indifferent. That way, it's like a concise thing. Like we can all think of something we've been meaning to do that we haven't. No, we've been all. I mean, there's all things we've been meaning to do.
It's hard to
that we haven't done. Even if it's not so much like responding to an urgent or immediate or unexpected situation. I feel like the indifference thing can happen to even things that are somewhat like expected or anticipated. So like, I mean, planning a date with your wife, would be like one thing, so like, it's not like that's an unexpected thing. I don't know. That would be my answer. But yeah, I feel like what's one thing you're gonna do? What's one thing you're gonna do this week that you're not gonna be indifferent about? Something that you've pushed off, something that you haven't been as good as you should be, that you're just gonna be like, all right, no more indifference. This is happening.
I mean, I can think of things. They just don't sound very interesting.
They don't need to be that interesting. It's not like
I'll schedule spiritual direction because I haven't for 3 weeks.
Honestly, yeah, that's like, I mean, like, there wouldn't have been anything that interesting about Father Mike just saying like, "Hey, how are you?" Like, I'm gonna say a prayer for you, or I really wish you could have been there.
I was gonna do it anyway.
So anyway, I don't know. Just something that you've been meaning to do or something you've been negligent on.
Okay, if that's what you got, we're on a roll of doing 2 options for final bells.
Oh.
So maybe you can do that one. I don't know. I've got some thoughts on convincing someone. Final bell.
All your strength, all your power, all your love.
Ding, 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 ding.
What round is it? 15. One more round. There's no stopping this now. This is our round. Don't stop it now. We're starting. We don't stop. All your strength, all your power, all your love, everything you've got. This is your whole life here. Do it now.
And we're back. Okay, we ain't gonna be indifferent about this final bell question, that's for sure. A couple options based upon user preference. How would you begin to convince someone? Examples: dopey dad, restaurant screen users, visitation avoiders, to swim out of the lane of indifference. Or, what are you gonna do this week that is not indifferent? Whoever is least indifferent to this question can go first.
All right, guys, step out of the way. No, I think so. This week, you're here to hear first, or not first. You've heard it here at some iteration on the Speech Guys. I'm going to plan a date with my wife this week. It's something I haven't been as good on. I've been somewhat indifferent on. But no longer. I'm going to do it this week. We're going to go on a date as soon as I can find a babysitter.
Report back. Tell us how it went. And exactly 1 month.
Will do.
Okay. Mix things up. I got some. How would you begin to convince someone to swim out of indifference? Well, I mean, the thought I have is that it's, maybe we didn't quite get to this, but I think it is an interesting thing to think about. It's like that lack of awareness, that indifference, it's not like it's just one muscle that can be trained to avoid that, right? It's a result of an entire internal ecosystem that is lacking in probably more than one critical parts, right? I mean, there's something lacking in your faith, something lacking in terms of a physicality, something lacking within your relationships, right? All of these things are bouncing off of each other and, helping ensure that all of these gifts within you that God gave you are manifesting. So it's like the dopey, I guess but it goes back to at the same times, like, friendship, relationship. I think of people in my life who have been hurt by the church in very understandable ways, that, like, yeah, it makes sense why you'd be hurt by that. And it's like, man, they're just, explaining to them the divine pedagogy of the Old Testament. It's just not going to land for them, right? Because they need to re-earn that trust in the church, which, hopefully is you, right? If you're faithful. Yeah, that's how you swim out of indifference. And it obviously is frustrating because it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes you swimming out of your own indifference, of course. But that's the game.
Sure.
That's how it frustrates me, the world that we live in the West, where everyone is just taking hits off of the internet for their belief system of, everything's just so frenetic, right? Their beliefs are motivated by just talking heads who are saying that so-and-so is out to get you, and all this just might be little bits of truth in it, but it's like, man, that's not what's going to save humanity in the spiritual way.
Sure.
This stuff, it's the persistence, it's the small moves again and again and again. So,
All right, quick thing on both. What am I going to do concretely to get out of indifference? So, being married, my most important relationship is obviously with my wife. So, thinking there, I think I'm going to try. Not going to try. I think this week I will call her over my lunch hour. Because I feel like just with 4 kids right now at home and picking up from school and stuff, she just is busy and kids and doesn't get enough, adult conversation sometimes. So trying to, like I said, my go-to is usually to do things. Oh, I'll do the dishes tonight. I'll clean up the house. But like just showing her in that way, I'm giving her some time. That would be my concrete way to not be indifferent. How to, I forget the question, but the other one, as far as calling people out of, indifference or whatnot, or these situations, the dopey dad I'm picturing, I do feel like sometimes you just have to tell them. And I know that sounds harsh, but when people say, oh, you're being so judgmental, I feel like oftentimes it's very easy to talk about people when you see them do, like us right now, right? I'm talking about these people that I've seen do these things, but if I'm not actually acting, I mean, that's not like the definition of Father Mike's indifference. Like, I'm not moved enough to actually act, so I'm not really loving them because I'm not doing anything about it. And right, we could, that's another question of how to do that best. You could, you invite them to something and in friendship, talk to them and not just tell them what they're doing wrong, but kind of show that you're still there for them too. But
Yep. Think on something to do. I have a little bit of a tendency on walks or evenings. The kids are out and about. Just like even the invention of the AirPods. It's like pop them in, audiobook, podcasts. I think the word that really describes the Lucy effect here is just like pure neighborliness, probably. And so I think that would reduce it. And for what to tell that family with the screens, maybe the dopey dad. Just pull it up, open Spotify, and listen to the Speech Guys on whatever your platform is.
Here's what ails you.
Really start to, if you're going to be on the screen, take in and absorb and think better about all those little moments that add up to your destiny and the topics really matter.
Yep. With that, who's got next episode?
I do. It is undecided yet, but I've got it. I started looking up some things. I have an idea I might run by you guys after we're done recording. But
cool.
It'll be a secret.
Well, thanks for drinking.
And thinking.
With us.
Hey, be safe out there, all right? Until next time. Cue the music.
Come and go. Look toward the horizon. Up ahead you'll find a peace of mind, relief from the trying. I have burned a bridge, wrecked in a ditch, had to ask forgiveness. Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Oh, there are stories to tell. The times we grew and the times we fell. Oh, I've been afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place. The road will lead us to a better place.
hey, what's up, Mike?
I heard back from Father Mike.
Oh, really? That's awesome, dude. What do you say?
Well, he emailed me back, and this is what he said. Hi, Mike. Thank you for reaching out. I'm sorry to say that I am not able to be of assistance, but thank you so much for the invitation. In Christ, Father Mike.
That sounds good. I mean,
hey, he didn't have to respond. He didn't have to respond to that. So we'll say 2 points.
Really be here, and he'll probably get us on something soon.
Yeah, exactly. Ross, I thought I heard some children in the background. Are there anyone on the call with you?
Yeah, we've got Thomas, my oldest.
Don't look at me.
And Catherine, my second oldest here.
I am the biggest.
Say hi, Thomas.
No, I'm the biggest.
Hey guys.
Hi, whoever your name is.
Quack, quack.
Hi, whoever your name is. Quack, 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 quack. Is he? Wait,
you guys, Thomas and Catherine, you guys are going to be famous one day with this being on the podcast like this. You can say you were on the podcast before Father Mike Schmitz was, and he's going to regret it.
When you say quack, quack, you seem like you're in the Mighty Ducks.
Well, I heard something recently about what you said, Thomas. The Mighty Ducks can cure any shortcoming any moral shortcoming. Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
I think that if we all work together as a team, we can all become better. I think that's something like what you said.
When you were talking the other day about we were talking about people being president, and you said you just needed the Mighty Ducks.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's true. I think it's true. So time will tell, though.
Like you're the coach. You seem like you're a coach, or you play on the team. You make some wacky noises.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go to bed. Well, actually, I'm gonna keep watching TV, and then I'm gonna go to bed. But as they say, quack quack.
All right, say bye. Say bye, Mike.
When you say weird.
Coach Bombay.
Bye bye, Coach Bombay.
Quack quack, Coach Bombay. Hey, Coach Bombay, make America great again.
Hi, Peanut Butter Head.